Hi, everyone. Everyone feels shame. How do you deal with it? Shame is a natural response. Studies have actually shown that infants experience shame just naturally. They aren't taught the feeling, it's just a natural response. The shame response is normal and natural, is what I'm trying to say. You're not unusual or wrong. It becomes a problem when it extremely affects your life or your interactions and your ability to have happiness. This is the I Care About You podcast, and I'm Juliana J. And today we are talking about shame. Are you experiencing shame that is affecting your life in a negative way? Let's take a look at shame. What causes it, how it makes you feel, how it changes your behavior, and how you can cope and work through it. So what causes shame? Shame can come and go. It can be somewhat transient, while other types of shame may be originated in a childhood situation or during your childhood. In addition, sometimes mental health concerns can create shame or exacerbate it. On the flip side of that, sometimes extreme internalized shame can develop into mental illness. Let's take a look at some of the potential causes of shame. So for one, childhood trauma, neglect, any mental health disorder that involves self-criticism or self-judgment, like social anxiety disorder, anxiety in general, not living up to overly high standards that you've set for yourself, this feeling that perfection exists, feeling that your flaws or inadequacies will be found out by other people, hiding from all of that so that you're not exposed. If you've been a victim of bullying, when you have experience with expectations not being met, or you have experienced failure, especially if you've kind of experienced a series of failures. And a lot of us go through that with big things like divorce, death, big life changes, promotions that we don't get, jobs, etc. When you feel rejections from others or the weakening of a relationship, when you, like I said, divorce can often bring up a lot of that. Oftentimes people feel they do not fit into the societal norms, and they experience rejection or bullying. Falling outside of the societal norms for a group can include judgments on a person's lifestyle, appearance, personality, culture, race, religion, family history, if they are new to the group, or basically anything a particular group has determined as outside of the norm for them. Cliques and closed belief systems can be very hard to break into. And if you do and you don't meet the norms of the group, you can often be shunned. How do you know if you're experiencing shame or if shame is taking over your life? Are you wondering whether you might be experiencing shame? According to the book, Guilt, Shame, and Anxiety by Peter Breggin, here are a few of the ways a person can feel shame. Being over worried about what others think of you. I think we all experience this at some time or another. Feeling unappreciated, used, or like people are taking advantage of you. Feeling rejected, inadequate, or like you don't measure up. Uncontrollable bodily functions like blushing. When a situation brings up hard memories or reminders or triggers shame, you feel like you're blushing, maybe your heart races, maybe you fidget, things like that that are kind of uncontrollable. You can't really stop it. Shivering. Being afraid to look inappropriate or stupid. These are all things that are really extreme, right? It's not just feeling afraid or inappropriate or that you might be considered stupid, but still moving forward. It's when these things stop you from moving forward. Worrying that you aren't treated with respect, wanting to have the last word in every argument, feeling like you can't be true to yourself, losing your identity, not sharing your thoughts or feelings because you're afraid you'll be embarrassed, being more worried about failure than doing something immoral or dishonest, being a perfectionist or having super high standards for yourself that are really not achievable. Another part of that is always raising the bar. So not letting yourself ever achieve a goal, you're always raising the bar because you're perfecting it, trying to get to this place of perfection. Feeling like an outsider, that you are different or that you are left out. Feeling like you can't trust others or you should be suspicious of all kinds of things. Being a wallflower or just wanting to shut people out or withdraw, trying to hide or be inconspicuous or not wanting to be the center of attention ever. How does this shame and feelings show up in our life? It can be like you look down instead of meeting people in the eye. You could hang your head or have posture that is slumping. You could have bowed shoulders. You could feel frozen or unable to move, not being able to act spontaneously. You're always thinking about what you're doing before you do it. Stuttering when you try to speak. Talking in an overly soft voice, being very quiet. hiding yourself from others, crying if you feel shame and embarrassment. So, not something necessarily sad or that's really close to your heart, but you just start crying if you feel embarrassed. I worked with somebody who was like this, and it was really challenging in meetings because if she felt remotely challenged, she would start crying and you would feel really responsible for hurting her feelings. And it was very strange. Now, I want to say too that all these things I just mentioned, I have also felt myself. We all feel shame. It's natural. What might be some of your responses if you're feeling shame? You feel ashamed. You feel defensive. You lash out in anger. We probably know a lot of people who do that. You just lash out immediately in anger when a nerve is touched, avoiding being the center of attention, not sharing your thoughts or feelings, over apologizing. Totally, I do this. Avoiding conflict, yes, 100%. Continually excusing your bad behavior, always having an excuse. That's kind of the opposite of over apologizing. Either you think that you are above it, you just lash out, you don't want to acknowledge it, or you think everything's your fault. How does shame impact your life? If you've experienced shame on some level that lingers or affects your daily decisions and happiness, you probably know that it can have a negative impact on your life. Here are some of the potential negative impacts that you might experience because of shame. It makes you feel that you are flawed and there is something wrong with you. It can lead to social withdrawal, especially if it's a result of public humiliation. It can lead to addictions like alcohol, drugs, sex, spending money, gambling, all kinds of things. It may cause you to become defensive without being able to self reflect in a healthy way. You may shame or judge others more readily or extremely. You may lead to bullying others if you had been bullied yourself. It may cause you to inflate your ego to hide the belief that you don't have value. A lot of times this shows up in a narcissistic personality. It may lead to physical health problems. There's a lot of physical health problems that can lead to aches and pains, stomach problems, disease, all types of things, rashes. It can be related to depression and sadness. It may maybe leave you feeling empty and lonely and worn out. It may lead to a lack of self-esteem, may lead to self-hatred, self-loathing. It may make it harder for you to trust other people. It may make it harder for you to go to therapy because you don't trust other people and you feel like everyone's judging you all the time. You always feel judged, even when it's not true. It may lead to perfectionism or overachievement in order to prove your own worth to yourself. You may feel unworthy. It may cause you to be a people pleaser. You may avoid talking because you're afraid to say the wrong thing. It may cause compulsive or excessive behaviors like strict dieting, overworking, excessive cleaning, excessive working out, excessive feeling about your looks, going over the top. Shame has been shown to affect your mental health. Studies show that shame can lead to mental illnesses such as I mentioned, anxiety, depression, eating disorders, low self-esteem. It can also lead to just doing really extreme things like eating disorders or over-exercising or over-cleaning and doing all types of things like that, obsessed about your looks. You might have noticed that shame has a wheel or a cycle that can be hard to get out of and easy to fall into. For example, you feel shame, which causes you to engage in behaviors that can lead to more feelings of shame. One behavior, say a lack of self-esteem, can lead to a lack of self-worth, can lead to self-hatred, which can lead to always feeling that you are being judged, judging other people's harshly, to feeling that everyone is out to get you, and so on. Some shame can be transient. It comes and goes, like the feeling you have when you make a mistake. This type of shame is temporary and passes quickly. It usually doesn't cause a problem in your life, and it can actually be a good thing because it can allow you to self-reflect and shift behaviors more easily than hanging on to a behavior or trying to justify it. You may take the time to get feedback from others more easily and be able to shift your behavior more easily. Sometimes you can feel a deeper sense of humiliation, especially when the mistake is more public. Humiliation is also part of the shame you may feel when you are in the company of others. You may feel embarrassed being with other people for no reason if you have this type of shame, or always worried about what you'll say or do or look like as far as how other people are perceiving you. Other shame can be chronic, leading to an overall feeling of not being good enough, of being a failure, of low self-esteem. This type of shame can lead to other mental health issues down the line. It can impact how you navigate the world. Shame can come from experiencing failure. Instead of seeing failure as something everyone goes through, you internalize it on a deeper level, like failing to get a promotion or a job, feeling like you're a failure, you're not smart, you're unworthy, and internalizing those beliefs as truths for yourself. This can also be an issue if you feel defeated, like when you lose at a sport. that you should have easily won. You can internalize that as that you're a loser, especially if you're really involved in a sports culture that's extreme. Oftentimes, we feel shame around people we don't know. Often this stems from feeling as though something is wrong with you and strangers will find out. This type of shame is common for social anxiety and anxiety in general and low self-esteem. I've certainly felt this myself. A lot of shame is associated with performance too. It's usually like public speaking or playing sports. This shame can affect others participating in the event or the game if they're doing it with you as a team or you're working on something together. A lot of us have speaking anxiety, and sometimes we can really trace that back to some shame. Other type of shame might be public humiliation, involves unwanted exposure. For example, if you say something wrong in public or you make a mistake in public and someone calls you on it or points it out, that can be kind of this public humiliation that's involved in shame. Some of us have shame about ourselves in general. We feel that we are inferior in some way. We may not be worthy of a relationship or a promotion or happiness or money or good things. We have this feeling we just aren't worthy of any of that. And we aren't good enough to be in a relationship or a friendship or partnership or anything because we really feel we just aren't good enough. We aren't measuring up. If you feel you are being excluded from a group or you don't belong, you might experience shame of feeling left out. This type is really common in social anxiety. And I think a lot of us who live in societies that are individualistic tend to feel like we don't belong or if we get excluded from a group, and we often are because we're in competition with one another constantly all the time. Internalized shame refers to the shame that has been turned inward. For example, maybe you've experienced some child abuse or trauma, and that experience has made you feel unworthy, or you have a lot of shame related to the abuse. You may feel that there is something inherently wrong with you, and this is kind of a toxic shame. Toxic shame is part of your core identity rather than just it transient coming and going. People who experience toxic shame may try to present as being perfect on the outer self to hide who they think they really are on the inside. Finally, and most importantly, healthy shame also exists. Well, not most importantly, but certainly worth noting. Shame can be healthy when it causes you to have humility, it allows you to laugh at yourself, it teaches you about your boundaries. Without at least a little bit of shame, we would have trouble understanding our actions and behaviors and how they affect other folks. So a little bit is okay. It's when you're really internalizing it. Now, I did a whole podcast on shame and versus guilt, and I want to make that distinction. So guilt is really something about something you've done. It refers to something you did or a behavior that you feel bad about. Guilt is about a wrong action. The action is the issue and not something about you. Shame is when you believe that your character or who you are as a person is unacceptable. Shame is not about doing something wrong. It is about the feeling you have when you think you are not good enough. Shame is not about a wrong action. The wrong action may have spurred the shame, but shame is more about you feeling that you are inherently wrong as a human being in some way. Shame is associated with avoiding failure. The consequences of that are deeper, whereas guilt is connected with forgiving and improving yourself along with making amends. So shame, you want to hide that, you want to avoid the failure, you feel that it is really something internally wrong with you, whereas guilt, you have more of an opportunity to forgive, to improve yourself, to make changes, to make amends. Learning to separate your guilt from shame is one of the first steps to feeling less shame in general, because instead of going straight to anything bad that happens as shameful, you can feel bad about it, but do things to shift it. How do you work with shame? It's 3 easy steps, really. Acknowledge your shame instead of avoiding it. Ask yourself, why do I have this shame? 2, embrace your feelings of shame. See them as something all humans experience, and you're not alone, and it's perfectly normal. And then 3, find acceptance for what has happened and yourself. This is all about unconditional self-love. So let's look at this a little deeper. When you acknowledge your shame, you notice when your feelings of shame are triggered. What are those things that trigger your shame? When you feel shame, how do you respond? How does it feel in your body? What emotions and thoughts come up for you? It's really important here to journal or write down the feelings you have when you feel shame and explore why. Where did these feelings come from? This is not an exercise in finding blame with people in your past, but rather, did you experience the situation as you did, and why did you experience that, and why did you feel the way you felt about it once it was over? Can you see that you were reacting as a child, and as an adult you can understand the situation that occurred in a different way? Or can you simply let it go? Do you need to speak to somebody outside to help you work through it, like a healer or a therapist? Do you need to talk to someone who is part of the situation to get closure? Do you need closure? What are the things that you need to really understand and work through your shame? So it's about identifying your triggers. When you feel shame, how do you respond? How does it feel in your body? What emotions and thoughts come up for you? And what does it mean to you? Spend some time diving into the past and how it has impacted your current shame situations. What takeaways do you internalize from past shame? Do you feel unworthy? Has it a blow on your self-esteem? Explore it. Bring your old shame into the framework of analyzation. Shed light on it. Take it out from inside your internal definition of self and examine it as though it was some external thing and not an internal feeling. And then lastly, embrace your shames and imperfections. Realize that all humans experience this. Shame is normal. Internalizing it in ways that don't help you is something we all do, but being able to notice that when it happens or has happened and do something about it is really important. And finding compassion for yourself, find love for yourself, and be proud that you were strong enough to live through this situation and then go back and analyze it and diffuse it. That takes a lot of bravery. Surround yourself with allies that will help you do this work. People you can lean on when you need to. It's really hard work, and it's nice to rest in love when you can. Remember that self-love is unconditional, especially when you feel shame. You are healing yourself, so be kind. Don't ignore your shame. Talk about it, write about it, bring it out into the light. Allow your shame to be normal, natural part of life, because it is, and something that you can heal from, learn from, and change from. Take time to work on your self-beliefs and self-definitions. Let go of the ones that aren't serving you and create new beliefs that will help you. You may have to practice your new beliefs for a while until they become second nature, and old beliefs will creep in from time to time. Just be aware and say to yourself when an old belief comes up, no, I don't think that about myself anymore, and reinforce your new belief. For example, if you think you're stupid, you say, no, I don't believe that anymore. What I do believe is that I can learn about this situation or topic. I'm smart enough to know. Accept that you will make mistakes. You aren't perfect. Things will happen. Life happens. No one is perfect. No one makes it through life without mistakes. Not one person, not one. Remember that your shame is not really about you as the person, but rather the experience you had and how you chose to internalize it at the time. It isn't about you. It's about the experience. You can re-examine the experience and decide to think of it in a different way, to think of it in a mindset you have now and not what you had when it occurred. This is especially important when it's something that happened in your childhood because you were looking at it through the eyes of a child. Now you can look at that incident through the eyes of an adult and really critically think about it in a different way. So I hope this has helped you think differently about yourself and the shame that is defining your happiness or taking your happiness away from you. You are capable of shifting these thoughts, and I believe in you. So know that I love you, and know that I support you, and you got this. I believe in you. Take care.